Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Medical Malice, Mayhem, and Murder. So I want to first of all thank everybody who watched my last video. I did get a very good amount of views for a first YouTube video, and I definitely got some subscribers. I want to thank you guys so much. And don't forget at the end of this video to like, subscribe, comment, share my video. Anything that you guys can do can help me out so much with the YouTube algorithm gods. So this story today, honestly, I thought I knew what I was going to talk about, and honestly, that's why it took me an extra day and a half to put this video on, because I thought I knew what I was going to talk about. But then once I started researching this story, oh man, did it get crazy. I went down this long, twisty, windy, scary road, and I had no idea about some of this stuff. So basically what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the Puerto Rican birth control trials. So that's the main subject of this video, but in order for you guys to kind of understand what happened there, I'm going to talk about something else, something that I don't think a lot of people quite understand happened in this country. So I'm going to talk about eugenics. So what's eugenics? Okay, so eugenics basically is the study of arranging reproduction and human population. So what they want to do is they want to increase the occurrence of desirable traits. It's also called selective breeding. So gross. Eugenics actually was invented by someone named Sir Francis Galton. And Mr. Galton was actually a cousin of Charles Darwin. Most people who know who Charles Darwin is, the theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. So one of Galton's other inspirations was another scientist named Gregor Mendel. And Gregor Mendel came up with the theory of genetic heredity. He also came up with genetic dominant and recessive traits. So what makes my eyes brown? What makes my hair brown? That was Gregor Mendel. So what Mr. Galton did is he took Mr. Mendel and Mr. Darwin's theories and he mushed them all up and he kind of made it his own. And what he said was, well, you know, if we can put all of the good traits together and try to weed out the undesirables, then we could definitely come up with a better human race. And he also believed in all of the really, really negative traits of eugenics, which was, you know, try to lessen the population. They wanted to get rid of as many poor people as possible. They wanted to get rid of as many African American people as possible, Native American, Chinese. They wanted to get rid of as many of those people as possible. They just really didn't want them in the mix anymore. And they actually kind of wanted to stick to a more Nordic trait. So like blonde hair, blue eyes. Now, what does that remind you of? What does that sound like? Eugenics was actually discredited as unscientific and racially biased during the 20th century. And another big reason was because of what Hitler did. Yeah, that's right. So if any of you know anything about World War II, you know that that's exactly what Hitler was trying to do. He was trying to make a master race, a more perfect race. Well, to be truthful, Hitler got all of his ideas from the United States because we had that going on way before World War II, honey. We had that going on for a long time. Since the late 1800s, we were trying this on people. So yeah, Hitler's little idea, he didn't just get it from nowhere. He got it from us. And I think that that's something in history that we just don't understand about ourselves. So in order for me to talk about eugenics and in order for me to talk about the Puerto Rican birth control trials, I have to talk about a woman. This woman, okay? She is another one of those characters in history, like in my last video, that you have to decide whether or not she is a villain or a hero. And it's honestly kind of hard because all of the bad things about her brought a bunch of good stuff, but the good stuff caused a bunch of negative stuff. So it's very, very difficult to understand. So who am I talking about right now? Who am I talking about? So we are talking about the godmama of birth control herself, Miss Margaret Sanger. Now, like I said, she's a tricky, tricky figure in history because with Margaret Sanger, we got birth control. Women finally had choices. We had freedom over our reproductive rights. You know, the sexual revolution happened in the 1960s. Women finally started taking control of themselves. And that's great. But the problem is that that's the story that we were sold, right? But that story comes with, oh my God, a really horrible and dark past. So Miss Margaret Sanger was born September 14th, 1879. So she is actually the woman who brought birth control to the masses, and that was her agenda. And the problem is that that was such her agenda that she didn't care what she had to do to get there. I think she kind of figured the ends justified the means. Now, Margaret also believed in eugenics. She definitely wanted population control. She really wanted to try to get rid of as many people as possible that, you know, were undesirable. She just really wanted, you know, people that had a really good, successful chance in life. So Margaret, she was a nurse, okay? And in her time as a nurse, unfortunately, she had to care for, my dog is like, he's dreaming. She had to care for a lot of women who had back alley abortions. Now, at this time, abortion was not legal, and it's kind of crazy because with what's going on right now in the Supreme Court, I think this is very important information to remember. Back then, if a woman could not get a legal, safe abortion, that didn't mean that they weren't going to still try to get an abortion. So they would have these, you know, very unsafe, unsanitary back alley abortions, or they would do crazy things to try to abort their babies. You know, everything from swallowing poison to using metal coat hangers to trying to hurt themselves, you know, accidentally falling down a flight of stairs. All kinds of terrible, awful things women would try to do. So she figured, you know what? I can give women a choice with birth control. That's what I can do. And that's what she wanted to do. And that's great. And she actually opened up the first birth control clinics. And, you know, she at one point she was arrested, you know, for what she was doing. She definitely was an activist. But the problem is that activist that she was, like I said, she did not care what she had to do to get us birth control. So, Miss Margaret, this is where you're not going to like her so much. So Margaret went to a biologist named Gregory Pincus, and Gregory Pincus specialized in mammal reproduction, okay? And he had already come up with a form of birth control, an oral contraceptive. So she was like, hey, I want birth control that can work on humans. And he was like, all right. So she found a backer. Her name was Catherine Dexter McCormick, and she was a philanthropist, and she also believed in eugenics, and she funded Dr. Pincus's work. So Dr. Pincus and Margaret, they had their birth control, but now they needed a way to test it on humans. So for that, they went to Mr. Clarence Gamble. Now, Gamble as in Procter and Gamble. There you go. There's one of our rich people. So you're going to find in this story and in the subsequent stories that I tell you that there was a lot of rich people involved. A lot. It's crazy. Okay. So Mr. Gamble, he actually already had a bunch of clinics in Puerto Rico. Because let me tell you about what was going on in Puerto Rico. Poor Puerto Rico. The United States has consistently treated Puerto Rico like a adopted child that they decided that they didn't want. Like, it is terrible. They do not enjoy any of the benefits of statehood. You know, they get all of the negative aspects of being just a territory of the United States. We went in there, basically took it over, stole all the land. Corporations went in. They were like, hey, we're going to make all of you citizens, all you dudes, you're all going to be farmhands. We're going to have you pick some sugar cane. And then they were like, ugh, there's just too many Puerto Ricans. So the Puerto Rican government actually, and these rich people that were there with their corporations, they decided, well, we've got to do something because we got to get rid of all of these people. Like, there's just too many of them. The unemployment rate is high. There's so much poverty. We just need people to pick the sugar cane, okay? But we don't want to deal with all these problems. So eugenics is probably the way. So what they decided to do is they decided to coerce a bunch of Puerto Rican women into getting sterilized. So they basically convinced them that it was their duty as Puerto Rican citizens, and if they wanted to see their island thrive, they needed to get sterilized. So Mr. Clarence Gamble, he opened up a bunch of clinics in Puerto Rico, and he was getting a bunch of Puerto Rican women sterilized. He just wanted to get rid of poor people and people of color. He didn't really care for them either. Later on in another video, we're going to talk about the Negro Project. That one is another really disgusting piece of cake. But anyhow, so Margaret was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to Clarence Gamble because, I mean, he's got tons of money. He's already got these clinics. Let me go to this guy. Like, I got this. Okay. So Mr. Gamble, Mr. Pincus, and Miss Margaret, they all decided to take their brand new drug to Puerto Rico. So Mr. Gamble was down, right? Because he already saw Puerto Ricans as like less fit citizens. So he was like, oh yeah, sure, you can come here, use my clinics and test this stuff on them. And, they were like, So in 1955, they decided to start testing Inovid, which was the world's first birth control, on women in Puerto Rico. And basically they marketed it to them as like this magic pill. They're like, this is, oh my God, you're not going to have to get sterilized. You have sex, you're not going to make a baby. This is perfect. But the problem is that these women had no idea that they were part of an experiment. They didn't tell them that. They didn't tell them that this drug was never used on anybody before. They were having so many problems, so many symptoms, heavy bleeding, passing out, nausea. 3 women died during this. And they never told them that it was, they were guinea pigs, essentially. I mean, that's what they were using them as. They were using them as guinea pigs. So, eventually birth control, it became legal in some states in the United States. It was actually in 1960. But they were still testing birth control on women in Puerto Rico all the way through the late 1960s, which is like, why? You got what you wanted. Why are you still using these poor women as guinea pigs? Well, at the end of the day, between the birth control and the forced sterilization, they actually sterilized a third of women in Puerto Rico. It was the largest mass sterilization to ever take place. And to this day, Puerto Rico is still poverty-stricken. So, I mean, to be fair, it didn't really work. But the problem is, in the United States, it worked a little too well. Margaret opened up clinics. Her first 2 were in New York. One of them was in Harlem. Now, you're going to need to remember this for a later story, but that first clinic that she opened up in Harlem was run by all African American people. Now, that might sound amazing, right? But there was a method to their madness. So we'll talk about that in a later video. But I'm going to tell you that, to be truthful, eugenics, it worked a little too well. So like I said, these clinics that Margaret started, they eventually became Planned Parenthood. And I don't have anything against Planned Parenthood. I actually had to go to Planned Parenthood before. And I'm pro-choice, honestly. But the problem is that the American women were kind of sold a lie. We were told like, oh, this is okay, and it's safe, and it's effective, and it's fine. And unfortunately, abortion now is the world's leading cause of death. So if you consider babies, fetuses, babies, it's the leading cause of death. Now, the saddest part is that for African American women, they're 5 times more likely to get an abortion than a Caucasian woman. And it has nothing to do with morality. It has to do with the fact that this idea was pushed on them. Like, this is fine, this is safe. We're going to talk about that later, but you guys tell me down below what you think about this video. What do you think about Margaret Sanger? Tell me if you want me to talk about anything else, and I am going to see you guys next week for another crazy video. You guys have a good day. Bye.